Rabbi Tobin. This is B'nai Shalom, and we are on chapter 3 of Masachet Sanhedrin. In the Schottenstein, it's 28a4.
Yeah.
As we're finishing 28. And we're going to stay in this topic of in-laws. And we're going to broaden the in-laws topic to stepchildren and stepbrothers for a moment. There's an interesting historical thing that happens here. There are no rules as far as who should be a witness in the Torah. The Torah says, on the basis of two, a person shall be put to death. On the basis of two, a thing is established. And so the rabbis took that and, in typical rabbinic fashion, said, two people are what you need for witnesses to establish any fact in a court of law, and if you're going to declare any witness to be an eid zomem, a lying witness who wasn't there to see it, you would need two witnesses against that person as well. So you have this basic concept, you need two. So witnessing documents, you need two, which means every legal sale to be proven or provable and protected would require two witnesses. So if you're buying in the market, there'd be two people standing there who would witness your purchase of the apples, or if you're buying a house, there'd be two people who would witness the purchase of the house.
We don't do that for chametz, though.
Same thing. There is a custom that when I sell everybody's chametz, that maybe it's in front of two witnesses who would testify that I had sold the chametz. I'm not so strict. Everyone's trusting me to sell their chametz, and I'm going to sell their chametz.
But we're selling it to you, and that one doesn't.
You're not selling me the chametz.
Chametz.
You're giving me the authority. You're giving me the authority to sell your chametz for you.
And that person is going to sell your chametz on eBay to somebody else.
Yeah.
To make a profit.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of. And we had a
I
series.
saw that in a movie. That
And
was
we had a
great-
series of texts that were quoted that basically were talking about fathers and sons being executed and not executed, or killed together or not killed together, or suffering the punishments of one sin or the other sin. And across the board, every single one of those sugiot, every single one of those little conversations ended with the concept that each individual person is only executed for their own sin, and when it says sons suffer for the sins of the fathers, it's when the sons are doing the sins of the fathers. This isn't exactly what it says, but it makes it come out as far as what we want it all to be, as far as the jurisprudence, and it's defensible. So then there's a lot of arguments about little stuff. Now where we are is we're kind of, last time we talked about a principle that within two levels of the family tree, all the rules of who can and can't be a witness apply, but in a third level of the family tree, it's not supposed to apply. In other words, all the males anywhere on your level of the family tree or the level above you and below you are not kosher witnesses for you. Okay? For your father also has that two levels, one above him, one below him. But his grandchildren, your children, are not within two levels of him, and therefore theoretically should be, could be perhaps allowed or not allowed, depending on how distant that relationship is. So you have, his brother, his brother's son-in-law, all these kinds of additional males are being cited as the people not allowed to be witnesses for you. Then we have a principle that's going to come back today if we get far enough, which is we have a tradition that there are 24 relatives. There's 8 categories of relatives in the Mishnah, and there's 3 for each of them, their son-in-law, right? And so it's 8 times 3 is 24. So there's a strong tradition that there are 24 relatives who are not kosher witnesses for you, okay? Then there's one other principle that you need to know that kind of showed up for a nanosecond, and it's going to show up more today, which is there are varying religious rabbinic traditions that a husband and his wife are halachically identical. In other words, if you win the lottery, your husband has won the lottery. If you win the lottery, your wife has won the lottery. If you have a husband, if you have a wife, right? These people are identical. If your spouse goes out and spends the checkbook on something, you have spent the checkbook. You can't go to the debtor and say, well, my spouse did that. That's not me, right? They are you. So what happens is there's going to be an argument here where the daughter and the son-in-law are kind of considered as the same person, which means each of their sons and sons-in-laws would not be allowed. which would also mean their wives, right? Because their sons' wives are just like the son. And that becomes important when you have step families, because my stepson is not my son, right? But if my wife and I are identical, and my wife is his mother, then we are identical, which makes me his parent, just like she is a parent. That may or may not hold water, and that's going to be a subject of debate today. Okay.
How about in a crime situation?
What kind of a crime situation?
I'm looking at the capital, but other than the capital crime, if the husband commits the crime, is the wife considered?
So each person is punished for their own sin. The husband and the wife are not considered the same for the sin, but they are considered the same, I think, as far as the assets.
So the IRS, the joint return,
Right.
You file joints.
So the wife would be for inheritance, but herself is not acceptable as a witness still, right? So any female we have to still regard as not
There are cases where a woman is allowed to testify, so a woman's testimony can be effective.
as a witness.
It depends on the case and so forth. But for now, we're just dealing with relations. So today is not going to be dealing with inheritance. It's going to be dealing just what's the relationship. Okay, so Amar Rav Nachman, 28a4. Amar Rav Nachman. Sorry, I put the book down on my computer and it tried to turn off the video. 28a4. We're at the very, very bottom of, if you have a Hebrew page, and on the English page, we're on the left column, second paragraph of 28a4. Amar Rav Nachman, Achi chamoti lo ya'id li. My mother-in-law's brother cannot testify regarding me, and ben achi chamoti lo ya'id li. And my mother-in-law's brother's son cannot testify concerning me. Can you come up with a better way of saying my mother-in-law's brother? My wife's uncle.
right.
Okay, so my wife's uncle cannot testify for me, and achi chamoti lo ya'id li. My mother-in-law brother's son,
My wife's cousin.
right? Ben achi, right? So my wife's cousin, my wife's uncle, and my wife's first cousin cannot testify regarding me. That's just an easier way to say it. Ben achot chamoti lo ya'id li, and my mother-in-law's sister's son cannot testify concerning me. So my mother-in-law's brother's son, my mother-in-law's sister's son, that would be my wife's cousin and my wife's cousin,
Right.
right? But they're being named differently because of the relation in between. Okay? Now, that's Rav Nachman. So Rav Nachman has come up with absolutely nothing because we kind of already knew all that. The Tana Tuna, and the Tana of our Mishnah has also taught, Ba'al achoto uva'al achot aviv uva'al achot imo hein uvenehem v'chatnehem. His sister's husband, his father's sister's husband, and his mother's sister's husband. They, their sons, and their sons-in-law. So we knew this regarding me. It's being extended regarding my wife's family. The identical relationships to my wife that are forbidden in my relationships are also forbidden to me. That's what's happening. Okay? Everyone see that? So the Mishnah already taught these relationships regarding me, and Rav Nachman has now taught these same relationships of my wife regarding me.
This one, exactly what you just said, goes for this one.
Okay, so it's the chart on the bottom right. It's the first chart on the right in the footnotes. Okay? Now, another ruling comes from the Mishnah. Now we're going to get an argument. Rav Ashi. Amar Rav Ashi, ki ha'avinan be'ula ibailan. When we were in the house of Ula, we inquired. Pause. Historical note. Ula is a very important character. Ula is the guy who basically brought the final Mishnah to Babylonia. So he's coming over in about the year 204. He brings it over. And the rabbis who are in charge of Sura and Pumbedita, the yeshivot that are in Bavel, will receive teachings from the West. And evidently they're going to go to his house in Babylonia, and they're going to ask questions that have been on their minds. The Torah has all the relationships regarding witnessing. We've been working it out to the best of our ability based on what we can find in the Torah. What is the law, Mar Ula, now that you have come from Israel with the Mishnah in your hand? Right? That's what's going on. So, what is the law? Achi chamav mahu. What is the law of one's father-in-law's brother? Now, look back at the quote from the Mishnah. His sister's husband, his father's sister's husband, and his mother's sister's husband. Actually, if we want to go back to the Mishnah, we'll see if we find it. Everyone back. You don't have to go back if you don't want to. If you'll
What's the father-in-law's nephew? Something back there.
Yeah. Where did our Mishnah go?
27b2?
Oh, wait, 24, I think, right? Oh, no, you're right. It's the next Mishnah, so 27. 27b?
B2.
B2, all right. Not so far back. Okay, so who are we looking for here? Ula said the father-in-law's brother, and the father-in-law's brother's son, and the father-in-law's sister's son. So the father-in-law's brother, his son, and the sister's son. So we have, in the Mishnah, we have brother, father's brother, mother's brother. We don't have any brother-in-laws, right? Mm-hmm. Sister's husband, father's sister's husband, father's sister's husband. Right? That's in the Mishnah. Isn't that one of the questions here? Mm-hmm. And his mother's sister's husband. And his mother's husband, his father-in-law and his brother-in-law. Father-in-law? Who said, right? So what are the categories we're being asked about? We're being asked about father-in-law's brother's son. Father-in-law's brother, father-in-law's brother's son, father-in-law's sister's son. And we have his father's brother-in-law, right? His mother's, and this stuff. And then it says, them, their sons, and their son-in-laws. That's what we have. And then it said in the Mishnah, v'horgo levado, and his stepson alone, meaning his stepson, but not his stepson's sons and sons-in-laws. Okay, so all these immediate relations in the Mishnah, it's them, their sons-in-laws, except for the stepson. And Yossi there said, this is Rabbi Akiva's Mishnah, and so forth. All right, so you might remember that. So, now we're with Rav Ashi. They asked, what about somebody's father-in-law's brother, the father-in-law's brother's son, and the father-in-law's sister's son? So, again, this is the same things that Nachman was just teaching about, right? Rab Nachman said mother-in-laws, this is father-in-laws. So it's my wife's mother's family, my wife's father's family. Nachman taught us about my wife's mother's family, and Ashi is asking about my wife's father's family. Does everyone see that? If we're confused here, we're in a lot of trouble. So let's make sure we've got it. Rav Nachman taught about my wife's mother's family. Ashi is asking about my wife's father's family. Part of Rav Ashi's question we recognized as already being covered in the Mishnah. So it's a little puzzling why he would ask that question. Rav Nachman, we could understand why he would ask the question or give the teaching, because my wife's mother's family is not covered in the Mishnah. But my wife's father's family is in part covered in the Mishnah. All right, so Rav Ashi asks three questions, and they are my wife's father's brother, my wife's cousin by her father, by her uncle, and my wife's cousin by her aunt, all on her father's side, right? Those are being asked. And Amarlan, there's no lawn back there. What could they possibly be? Oh, it's the drying machines.
What are they drawing?
We had a flood here yesterday morning. The sprinklers went off in the meat kitchen for about 45 minutes, and it flooded that part of the building. We're ripping out carpets and floors again. Okay, Amarlan, Ula says to us. So Ula answers Rav Ashi when this question is made. What's the question? The question is about the wife's father's family, her cousin by that side through her father's brother or sister. Okay? Ula says, Tanitua, it was taught in a Mishnah. Like, why are you asking me this question? Right? It's already been taught. Aviv v'achi imo, one's brother, one's father's brother, hein uvenehem v'chatnehem, them, their children, and their sons-in-laws. Now, is that a direct answer to the question? Seems to be, right? So in other words, they're all outlawed because it's covered in the Mishnah, all these males of the male. It's interesting because he's not really answering the question of them being in-laws to begin with. Like, it would seem you could say that just these people and their in-laws are the ones that are forbidden, not in-laws to begin with. Right? That's the question. But that question is not answered. He just says, here's the Mishnah. So now we're going to go on. Rav Ikla le Mizban. We have a story. Rav went, and he went to buy, what did he buy? Gvile, parchments. So, Rav goes to buy parchments. Baumine, they asked from him, Maushi Aida Dam Be'eshet Horgo. What is the law regarding the stepson's wife? So, what's he doing? He's in the market. He's buying parchments so he can go make mezuzahs. And his stepson's wife, maybe his stepson's wife is with him and she's buying, or maybe she's the witness, whatever, she's involved. Can she be involved in the witnessing of this to make it a kosher sale? He answers them, Basura amre ba'al ke'ishto, uvapum bedita amre isha kevala. So in the two great academies in Babylonia, Surah and Pumbedita, in Surah they say a husband's like his wife, and in Pumbedita they say a wife is like her husband. One way or the other, doesn't matter, it makes them equal. So the stepson's wife is not allowed, because the stepson is not allowed. In the Mishnah it said Horgo levado, the stepson alone. So we know the stepson's son or the stepson's son-in-law should be allowed because the Mishnah said only the stepson. So they got smart. They said, well, what about the stepson's wife? She's not allowed because everyone agrees a husband's like his wife, a wife is like his husband. So even though it says Horgo levado, even it says only him, that also includes his wife. Ooh, those fumes are tough, right? They always do that.
Is Sarah in the yeshiva? Is that?
Those are the great academies of Rav and Abaye in Babylonia.
And it seems like they're saying the same thing.
They are.
Changing the order.
Yep, you don't have to analyze that one.
Okay.
We're not going like you would think that. Oh no, now it's going to make a difference by the order. Thankfully, it doesn't do that here. It's fully capable of doing that. It chooses not to. Okay.
What's happening there?
Now, the rule that a husband and a wife are like each other, where do we get that from? Da Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav Nachman, because Huna said in the name of Rav Nachman, Minayin Sha'isha Kevala. How do we know that a woman is like her husband? Dichtiv, as it is written in the Torah, Ervat Achi Avicha Lo Tikalei El Eshto Lo Tikrav Dodatchahi. And so you have this, do not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother, do not approach his wife, she is your aunt. So even though she's not your aunt, the prohibition is as if she's your aunt. So from that we learn that the uncle and the aunt, it doesn't matter who's the uncle and who's the aunt, the prohibition against uncovering their nakedness, because you can't do that to your aunt, applies even if she's your aunt-in-law.
So are all the Kedosh, the ones in Parshat Kedoshim?
It's them and their spouse.
So there's a whole list of different
Absolutely.
people in Kedoshim. Would those all not be witnesses then? Like if they're listed in Kedoshim, probably.
Oh, no.
Of course,
this,
not wild animals, of course. But.
This, what we just did in this sentence isn't talking about witnessing anymore.
Oh.
It's talking about the general category of a husband being like his wife. Because in the sexual prohibitions, the husband's wife, your uncle's wife,
Right.
is like your aunt. They're made equivalent in that verse. From that we know husbands and wives everywhere in whatever category are equivalent. But that thing in Kedoshim was not about witnesses.
Oh, no, I know that. Yeah, no, I'm just saying. But in Kedoshim, I'm just saying, there's a lot of other relationships.
Yes.
And just, I would think all of those, if it's mentioned in Kedoshim, you probably would not be able to be a witness.
Probably, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking.
I don't know that there's anybody mentioned in Kedoshim who's not also already mentioned in the Mishnah.
Yeah, I think.
Like they're all there, I
Yeah,
think.
it's not as inclusive.
They're all there if husbands and wives are identical, because all the men are there. in the Mishnah. The women aren't mentioned in the Mishnah, unless they've got a man married to them or born to them or something like that. The Mishnah is just about the men. But now we have a principle that the men and women are equal, which means everywhere where the Mishnah says a man, the spouse is also forbidden, the wife. Okay. Hello, Eshet Dodohi. Isn't she your uncle's wife rather than an actual aunt? Miklal de Isha Kiva'ala. No. It establishes a general principle that a man and his wife are the same. Now, we're going to go on in the Mishnah. We're working our way through this Mishnah. Uva'alimo hu uvino v'chotno. The bit about his mother's husband, that's known as your stepfather. He, his son, and son-in-law. So your stepfather's son and your stepfather's son-in-law. This would be your stepbrother and your step-brother-in-law.
That's correct.
Okay? Your stepbrother and your stepbrother-in-law are also forbidden by the Mishnah. The Gemara is going to say, really? Beno hayinu achiv. But why do you need something to teach that your stepbrother is out? We already were taught your brother is out. Right? Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah comes to say, Lo nitzrecha ella la'achi ha'ach. It's only needed for the case of the brother's brother. The brother's brother.
That's him.
So look at the chart.
Brother is me.
Look at the chart down below. Look at the notes. Look at the chart. You have a wife and a husband. The son on the left is the guy we're talking about. The son in the middle is this guy's
Stepbrother.
half brother.
Half.
And the guy on the far right is his actual stepbrother. So the guy in the middle is his brother, and the stepbrother over there is his brother's brother. Your stepbrother's not your brother, but if you each share a half brother, let's put it this way. I'll give you a case. My parents divorced when I was 10. Okay? My mother had me in a previous marriage, right? Because that's me. She marries a man who has a son from a previous marriage. Then they have a baby together. Right? So they have a baby who is my half-brother. That baby is also my stepbrother's half-brother. So he, my stepbrother, is actually my brother's brother. But he's not my brother. Get it?
Yeah.
So why do they have to teach the mother's husband, his son, and his son-in-law? Only in the case, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, where there's a brother's brother. That's why you would need to know that. Because my brother and his brothers are forbidden to me. Right? Rav Chisda achsher ba'achi ach. But Rav Chisda says he's kosher. The brother of the brother is kosher. And they said to him, Lo shmei alach, demar Rabbi Yirmiyah. What, you never heard of Rabbi Yirmiyah's ruling that this is out of line? How dare you? Amar lahu, he said, Lo shmili. Nah, I never heard it. Which the Gemara now explains, klomar, as if to say, Lo svirle, I don't agree with it. So he just disagrees with Rav Yirmiyah and he's ignoring him. Ihachi hainu achiv. But if so, if Rav Chisda rejects Yirmiyah on the explanation of the Mishnah, in other words, we didn't need Rabbi Yirmiyah to do this, it's just a brother's brother, then we have a brother's brother. It would already be outlawed. So why would he be aksher? Why would he make it kosher? Tana achiv min ha'av v'katani achiv min ha'em. The Tana is saying that there's a paternal brother and then states the disqualification of the maternal brother. So the solution here is not acceptable to me, really, but it says, when it says achi achiv, it's a brother of his brother. The two brothers are actually of different parents. Does that help? Does that hurt? I know it hurts your head. Okay? But basically, they just outlined the box on the bottom of the page.
Right.
Okay? The Gemara cites a ruling regarding the possible form of a relative. Okay. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Avi chatan ve'avi chala me'idin ze al ze. The father of the groom and the father of the bride testify regarding each other. So these are your machtana, right? Your in-laws by your children's marriage Are you related to them?
No.
You're not. You don't share siblings, you don't share parents, you don't share aunts and uncles, presumably. So you can testify regarding each other. V'lo damu lahadade ela kiach laladana. Because they're not any more connected to one another than a lid from another place. You ever go through your Tupperware drawer? Try and make all the lids fit?
Yeah, don't throw out the extras.
So you might have a lid that doesn't quite fit your Tupperware.
I know.
That's the relationship between Machtana. You're not really related. You're not really the right lid for them. You think you are. It looks like you are. You might even try to make it happen, but no, this is a barrel with an ill-fitting lid. Okay? They're not really related. Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana. So Rabba Bar Bar Chana comes in. He goes, Me'ida dam la ishto arusa. Okay, so you need to know the category of arusa. In a Jewish wedding, you have the Seder Erusin and the Seder Nisuin. Seder Erusin is where a ring is given. Nowadays, people often exchange. But a ring is given, and a Kiddush cup is used, and a blessing over a wine is made, and it's a la Erusin, betrothal. In traditional days, betrothal would have happened at least 9 months before the actual wedding. Because you want those 9 months to go by, so anything that comes from this marriage is absolutely clearly from this marriage. Okay, so typically a year. So you would have Erusin, a betrothal of a year, and then you would celebrate the Nisuin. And at the Nisuin, you have the Ketubah, and you have the Chuppah, and all of that. Okay? You also actually have a Ketubah at the Erusin.
Is that engagement nowadays?
So we would call that engagement.
Okay.
And it carries with it a couple of important status changes. She has the promise of a ketubah. She also is an eshet ish. If she has sex, it is adultery, even though they haven't consummated the marriage.
Unless she has it with her betrothed.
Well, that's called marriage.
Then they're married.
Right. Yeah. In Jewish law, the second an engaged couple has intercourse, they are married. So the common custom nowadays of the romantic proposal and then off to the bed is actually a marriage under Jewish law. To enforce that, I would need witnesses, however. So let's not do that.
Good call.
Okay, so the arusa,
Kosher witnesses.
and not the mother-in-law, thank God.
Is that kosher witnesses?
Okay, so here we go. So the arusa is the woman who is betrothed but not wed. Okay? So, are you family?
It was.
If you die well engaged,
Oh,
does your fiancé inherit from you?
no.
No. Marriage matters. You're not married. That is not your spouse. Under common law and probate and all those things, a fiancé has no standing. And they should have no standing. They're a fiancé. Right? Living for 10 years engaged together is just silly. Seal the deal. Right? Okay. So, what do we do here? So the arusa. Amar Rabba Bar Chana Me'id Adam La'ishto Arusa. A person may testify regarding his arusa, his engaged wife. Amar Ravina. Ravina comes in and goes, La Amran Ela La'apoke Mina. That was only taught when you're taking money away from her. Aval Le'ayole La Lo Meheman. But if you're trying to add to her, they did not allow you to testify regarding her. So you're not allowed to testify regarding your arusa unless it is to her financial disadvantage. Why?
Because if it were to her advantage, the husband or the husband-to-be would gain from it financially.
He has no incentive to lie if it's to her disadvantage, right? If he's testifying to her disadvantage, he has no incentive to lie. He will not benefit from the testimony. If it's to her advantage, he would benefit from the testimony, so his testimony is highly suspect. Right? That certainly makes sense. The Gemara, however, is going to reject that ruling. V'lahi, but that's not true. It's not true. Not just not true, the thinking about it, the whole case is not true. Lo- It wasn't taught that he could take away from her or add to her.
In either case, he's not believed.
Lo mehema, that makes no difference. He's not going to be believed. My dataich, so what was the reasoning to reject it? Right? Kid'amar Rav Chia bar Ami mishmei de'ula. And here he is again. So Rav Chia bar Ami said in the name of Ula, Ishto arusa lo onen velo mitamela v'chein hi lo onenet velo mitamalo meta eno yorasha met hu gova ketubata. So it's an interesting thing. There's 6 different cases in here. In the name of Ula, it's been taught that a man's arusa wife, he does not become an onen for her. In other words, he doesn't mourn her. If your fiancé dies, you're not going to be an onen, you're not going to sit shiva, you're not going to say kaddish. She's not your wife. If you wanted that, you should have made her your wife. Right? That's where they are. Now I know, difficult case.
So the word onen is mourner.
An onen is a mourner prior to burial, technically. From the time of death to the time of burial, you are an onen, and after that, you are an avel. Okay? So, if your arusa dies, you do not become an onen. If you are a kohen, you are forbidden from going to a cemetery, right? Because you are in a place of impurity. But you go to the cemetery if it is an immediate relative. Husband, wife, sister, brother, daughter, son, mother, father. Those people you do go to the cemetery for as a kohen. So if your fiancée dies, do you go to the cemetery for her?
No.
No. Lo mitama. He does not become impure for her. V'chein he, and similarly she, should he be the one who dies, she does not become an onen for him. She does not become impure for him, which is kind of interesting because a kohenet doesn't necessarily follow those laws, but okay, they're just being reciprocal here in the logic. Meta eno yorasha. If she dies, he does not inherit from her. However, if he dies, metu gova ketubata, she does collect her ketubah. Why would she collect her ketubah in that case?
Because
So
otherwise,
she can't marry him afterwards.
It was already transferred to her ownership, really.
well,
the- one of the
yes,
terms
she's
that-
not bereft, so she
But-
has something to
Well,
survive
biblically, she would be going back to her father's house, so theoretically she's not bereft anyways. But the ketubah is a promise he makes to her, and it says, and if I die, you will inherit in front of me before all others. So the ketubah has some force. I don't think it's really meant to be additionally protective beyond what the ketubah already is.
Two ketubas today still stay?
We do use the ketubah today. When people divorce, we ask them to formally renounce any claims that are in the ketubah so the divorce proceedings can move forward smoothly. And people do that. You have to be civilly divorced before we'll do a Jewish divorce in America. That's where the money really gets handled. Okay, so she does collect the ketubah. So we see from here that, in many ways, an arusa is not considered related to her husband. Now remember, what was the original thing trying to say?
testify. Or can they be witnesses?
So we had the case where a person may testify regarding his arusa. And Ravina said that was only to diminish her. And the Gemara is rejecting it completely on the basis of the arusa laws. So we see here that in many ways arusa is not considered related to her husband. Similarly, we should consider them unrelated in regards to testimony and allow the arus to testify to the detriment of his arusa.
Question, going back, the Kohen does not become Tamei for her if he's a Kohen.
Right.
You said, if they are part of the family, he goes to the cemetery. Does he become Tamei because of the family?
Mm-hmm.
So then he has to get purified afterwards.
Right, he would have to go to mikveh after
Yeah,
going
mhm.
to the cemetery.
Okay. So in other words, he can go, but he still becomes Tamei.
Correct. Okay.
The Kohen can always go for the funeral, but let's say on the anniversary, is he allowed?
He would not go on a
He
yard
would-
site.
He would not go there.
No, because it's not mandatory to go for a yard site. It's an optional custom, so you wouldn't do that.
Oh, and because it's a mandatory custom to do it, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Okay. Now, the problem is that in the Arusa case that we just learned about, she's not his wife for this, she's not his wife for that, but she is his wife for ketubah, that's not going to apply to the case of testimony. That's what's going to happen now. The Gemara is going to claim you can't make an analogy from death, inheritance, and tuma to simple testimony. And it goes like this. Hatam b'she'ero tala rachmana. There, regarding the laws of tuma and inheritance that we just learned, the Torah was talking about how close that relationship was. You're talking about, it's not that there's no relationship, it's that it's not the close family relationship, right? You can't just say it's an on-off light switch. It's not just a yes-no question. She's family or she's not family. She's really tight family, and then she's too much family to be testifying regarding, and then she's not family at all, and you can testify. That's what the Gemara is going to say. So it goes like this. Akate lav she'arahi, and Arusa is not that close relationship. Hacha mishum ikarove da'atahu, but here because of the closeness of them, they would also be disqualified. The Arusa would be disqualified. Ha ikarva da'ate legaba, and the Arus indeed feels close to his Arusa. So they're going to say this idea that he can testify regarding an Arusa is false because they're too close. And you can't use the thing about mourning and being impure because that's like a really very small category the Torah was worried about. Testifying can be a larger category of people that we're worried about.
Let's ask you something about that. So if the wife becomes a widow, does she then lose all rights in terms of
The wife
inheritance?
becomes a widow, she inherits the ketubah, and she's no longer related to her dead husband's family,
That's what I was
and they
wondering.
can now testify her, except for her father-in-law, if she has children from the dead guy. Because the dead guy's father is still the grandfather for her son. And so they can't testify regarding her, but the rest of her dead husband's family can testify regarding her,
Okay, then it's not like she killed her husband.
even if she did.
Okay.
I mean, she has to face other outcomes of that, but it does render his family eligible to be witnesses as long as they're not witnessing regarding something that happened while she was married.
Okay.
So it seems like wherever money can possibly flow.
Right,
Where
follow the
will
money.
Flow, not a witness.
Right.
That
Correct.
Flow that
That
way.
I knew.
Correct. Okay. Now, Horgo Levado. We're going to go back. We're working our way through the Mishnah. Progress through the Mishnah. The stepson alone. Who would like to try and read this?
Where are we?
Top of
28b2 on the right.
28b2.
Oh, at the top.
I can read the English.
Go ahead.
Gemara cites two Baraitas that discuss the laws of a stepson and a brother-in-law.
Tanu Rabbanan.
The rabbis taught in the Baraita,
Horgo Levado.
his stepson alone is disqualified from testifying.
Rabbi Yossi Omer Giso.
Rabbi Yossi says his brother-in-law,
Vitanya Idach.
and it was taught in a different Baraita,
Giso Levado.
his brother-in-law alone is disqualified.
Rabbi Yehuda Omer Horgo.
Rabbi Yehuda says his stepson.
Okay, so if we go back to the Mishnah says Horgo Levado, his stepson alone, and at that point Rabbi Yossi comes in and says this used to be Rabbi Akiva's Mishnah, and originally they only said these people and anybody who can inherit from him. Okay, you kind of remember that from the original Mishnah? This is an alternate ending. It's like the movie Clue that has 3 alternate endings. Right, so this is an alternate ending to the Mishnah, according to Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi says it's not Horgo Levado, it's Giso. Not his stepson alone, but his brother-in-law. And Vitanya Idach, and it was taught in a different Baraita that the text actually says the Giso Levado, his brother-in-law alone, rather than Rabbi Yehuda Omer Horgo. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, it says stepson. Okay? So now we have two guys who are Tanas from the age of the Mishnah who are arguing about what the Mishnah is going to say. This is really interesting because remember, Rabbi Yossi came in and said, that's the Rabbi Akiva, that's the newfangled Rabbi Akiva Mishnah that you just quoted. That used to say this other thing. And now here we have that same Rabbi Yossi arguing with Rabbi Yehuda about a different ending, right, of the Rabbi Akiva Mishnah. Okay? So in other words, this Mishnah, the laws of this Mishnah were not clear. They're not clearly based in Torah text, and they were arguing about them. This is in flux. This stuff is all in flux. So the Gemara has preserved that complexity, has preserved that conflict, and is now going to try and figure out what this is. What was Rabbi Yossi thinking? What was Rabbi Yehuda thinking? Who's this Baraita? This Baraita is according to whom? And the Mishnah, therefore, is according to whom, if Rabbi Yossi and Yehuda are arguing. So, my Kamar.
What did Rabbi Ula contribute that wasn't already there?
Okay, so the Rabbi Ula Baraita about Onen was brought by the editor of the Gemara to try and show the thinking behind Rabba Bar Bar Chana.
Okay.
So Rabba Bar Bar Chana said a person can testify about his Arusa, because she's really not related, is the implication. And the Gemara brought the teaching of Ula that says, see, here's a teaching that says she's not related.
Okay. So Ula brought.
She's not related in mourning, she's not related in impurity, she can get her ketubah, fine, but he can't inherit from her, they're really not related. So the Gemara brought that Barai to try and prove Rabba Bar Chana's point of view, and then the Gemara itself rejected
That's
it
Yeah, I see.
and moved on. So Ula didn't really talk about an Arusa and witnessing. The Gemara brought Ula on a different topic to try and use it to talk about witnessing.
Off the bridge.
Right? To say, well, you have a precedent law over here on a different topic, and therefore I'm going to apply it here. And the answer is, it's a different topic. So you can't use it as precedent law. All right? Okay, here we go.
The Gemara attempts to determine the meaning of each Tana's statement. What is each Tana saying? If you say that this is what each is saying, Rabbi Yehuda states in the first Baraita.
Hang on, where are you reading?
From where you left off.
Where did we leave off?
The Gemara attempts to, you said that about the stepson. We read that paragraph. We're on the same page.
Ah, good. I turned the page because I flipped back to Rabba Bar Bar Chana, and I was like, where are we?
So,
All right, so the Gemara attempts to determine the meaning of each Tana statement. My Kamar. What is each Tana saying?
so if you say that this is what each is saying,
Horgo levado v'hu hadin legiso.
Rabbi Yehuda states in the first Baraita that the stepson alone is disqualified, and he agrees that the same applies to his brother-in-law.
Okay, so if you're going to say that Rabbi Yehuda, who in that Baraita just said, Horgo levado, the stepson alone, and you can learn from that the brother-in-law. That's why Rabbi Yehuda says it should just say stepson, because brother-in-law would be included in your conclusions. Then what? Ve'ata Rabbi Yossi lememar giso levado v'hu hadin lahorgo.
And Rabbi Yossi comes to say that his brother-in-law alone is disqualified, and the same applies to his stepson. Can this be their intent?
Pause. So in the Baraita where they disagreed, where Rabbi Yossi said it's the brother-in-law, and Rabbi Yehuda said it's the stepson, could it be the intention that Rabbi Yehuda is saying, well, when you say stepson, it includes the brother-in-law, and Rabbi Yossi would say that when it says brother-in-law, it includes stepson. In other words, can you really be saying that Yossi and Yehuda are agreeing with each other? That they're just using the opposite examples, but they're both included in each other's examples? Could you really think that they're getting along that nicely? That would be uncharacteristic of Talmud. Go ahead. Ella matnitin de katani giso hu v'no v'chodno, but
But then our Mishnah, which states his brother-in-law he, his son, and son-in-law are disqualified.
Mani.
Whose view does it follow?
Okay, so if you're going to say that one guy says chot no, and that includes giso, and the other guy says giso, and that includes chot no, then the Mishnah, when it says giso, his son and son-in-law, and it has both words, giso and chot no, whose opinion is it following, Yossi or Yehuda?
This is neither.
So,
That's great.
lo Rabbi Yehuda, velo Rabbi Yossi. It can't be either of them. Why? It follows neither.
Since both agree that a brother-in-law alone is disqualified. Rather, perhaps this is what each Tana is saying.
Horgo levado aval giso hu uveno v'chot no.
Rab Yehuda says that his stepson alone is disqualified, but as regards his brother-in-law, he, his son, and son-in-law are disqualified.
Ve'ata Rabbi Yossi lememar
And Rab Yossi comes to say that
giso levado aval horgo hu uveno v'chot no.
his brother-in-law alone is disqualified, but as regards to his stepson, he, his son, and his son-in-law are disqualified.
Okay, so now you have a baraita that can still have an argument, and that is to say, the reason one would say giso levado, and the Mishnah says giso uveno uvechot, all three are in the Mishnah, is that he would say his brother-in-law alone, not his sons and son-in-law, but his son-in-law, yes, and his son-in-law's sons-in-law, yes, are disqualified, right? So you see the math problem.
Yeah, no, are we talking about three different possibilities or four? I think it's four.
Right now we're back to two.
Well,
Rabbi-
but they disagreed with both, so there has to be there's a
Well,
third
now
one.
we're trying to find a binary disagreement again. So at this point, you have Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi says giso levado, his brother-in-law alone, meaning his brother-in-law's son and sons-in-laws can testify,
Right.
but the brother-in-law is out. But your own son-in-law, well, his sons and sons-in-laws cannot testify because the Mishnah says so. That's That's reading this according to Rabbi Yossi. Flip it for Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda would say, no, it's not the brother-in-law. It's the son-in-law. Chot no levado. Your son-in-law alone cannot testify, but his sons and son-in-laws would be fine. Your brother-in-law and his sons and son-in-laws are not permitted to you. So they've got the exact opposite. Which one it goes down to the kids and which one it doesn't go to the kids. Yossi says it does not go to the kids of the brother-in-law, and Yehuda says it does not go to the kids of the son-in-law. And now we can say that's what the Mishnah, that's what the Baraita is doing, that they don't agree in the Baraita. They actually have this huge difference, actually, in the Baraita. And now you have to say, well, which one of those matches the Mishnah better? Okay? So here we go.
It's a neither.
But the problem is, the Elahad Tani Rabbi Chia. What are you going to do with Rabbi Chia's Baraita, which tells us Shmona Avot Shehem Esrim V'Arba, that we know there's only 24 relatives. Each one of these guys, Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, have just added more relatives. Whether you believe Rabbi Yehuda's right or Rabbi Yossi's right, they're both adding new relatives. And now you have more than 24, and we know that's not allowed. Come on. Whose view does the Baraita follow? Loka Rabbi Yossi or Loka Rabbi Yehuda? Neither. So now we have to conclude Ella Hachi Kamar. Go ahead.
From
Rather, this is what?
Rather, this is neither.
28b3.
Oh, I see. I just went down another line. Rather, this is what each Tana is saying. Rabbi Yehuda says that his stepson alone is disqualified, but as regards his brother-in-law, he, his son, and son-in-law are disqualified. And Rabbi Yossi comes to say that his brother-in-law alone is disqualified, and certainly his stepson alone is disqualified.
Aha. So Rabbi Yehuda gets to the math right by letting the brother-in-law. Rabbi Yehuda says, that the stepson is on his own. The brother-in-law, he and his son and son-in-law are disqualified. There's four. Rabbi Yossi says that it's the brother-in-law is disqualified, and therefore certainly his stepson alone is disqualified. Only two, not four. Umat nitin Rabbi Yehuda baraita Rabbi Yossi. And the Mishnah therefore follows Rabbi Yehuda, and the Baraita taught by Rabbi Chia about the 24 is following Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Yossi does not add, so he gets to only 24 people. He changes who they are. That's in accordance with the Baraita of Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Yehuda interprets it in a way that comes up with more than 24, and that's not in accordance with Rabbi Chia, but it is in accordance with the Mishnah. And then you conclude the Mishnah and Rabbi Chia are not in accordance.
Didn't we have 32 at one point?
We did, and then we ran far, far away from that as fast as we could. Okay? All right, so I think
Outline the 24.
we should stop there, because we're going to have another one of these, but the halakha is supposed to be Rabbi Yossi in these cases, and we just showed that it's not. Okay, we are going to, God willing, on Monday during Pesach, finish this section and get to a new Mishnah. And we'll be leaving the relatives behind. And we're going to be going on to witnesses themselves. How do you scare the heck out of the witnesses so they'll tell the truth?
That's the fun.
That is the fun one. That's one we've been looking forward to. Okay.